So I can't wait for it. So an interesting story is I spent the weekend in Chicago, and there are a lot of Bear hats out there. People are all fired up. Everybody's like, how do you think the Bears are? And I was telling people that it takes steps. And a great example for the Bears to watch, and it's not perfectly analogous, is Detroit. So Detroit gets a new quarterback and gets a new coach, Dan Campbell. And the Bears have Eberflus. He's a holdover, so it's not perfectly aligned. But the first year, you're like, you're winning some games, but you're not an elite team, but man, do they play hard. And in the second year with Dan Campbell and Goff, you're like, man, they're putting some pieces together. This feels like it's getting close to maybe a wild card team. But and then year 3 last year, you're like, oh, that's a good team. And a little young, maybe not a Super Bowl team. That's a good team. And now we're in year 4, and you're like, that's probably the best team in the NFC. 4 years with the right coach, the right GM, the right quarterback, the right tackles. So it's steps. This is step 1. Step 2, for all we know, Eberflus isn't there. But step 1 is, okay, this rookie quarterback's good. Let's keep developing it. Let's keep adding pieces to it. Let's beat the teams like Tennessee, Carolina, Jacksonville. We should beat. Okay, check. But remember, this is now easily the best division in football. Okay, so I look at the schedule, and you got 3 more weeks without a lot of turbulence. At Washington, without Jaden Daniels, maybe. At Arizona, they're a mess. Week to week, you never know what you get with Arizona. And then New England. So is 7-2 a possibility? Yes, if Jaden Daniels doesn't play. Let's say it goes 6-3. You win 2 of those. So you're 6-3. So that step is we got the right quarterback. We won the games we should win. And then you look at the final 8 games. It's a lot of at Detroit, at Minnesota, at Green Bay, at San Francisco. You're not going to breeze through those. If you could go 500, ticker tape parade. So my take on Chicago is it's steps. Your quarterback's right. O-line probably needs another stud. Receivers are nice. Eberflus is very good on the defensive side. It's like Houston last year. Houston got everything right. They get the coach right. Houston got the quarterback right. They had a great left tackle. They hit on some draft picks. You're like, oh, Houston. But you didn't think they were a Super Bowl team. Now, this year with Houston, they had Joe Mixon. They had another draft pick or 2. You're like, I really like Houston. And you see how bumpy it's been for Houston? You see him get blown out at Minnesota early? You see him lose this past weekend? Oh, because Houston now had to play the NFC North. It's pretty hard to go to Green Bay and win. Pretty hard to go to Minnesota and win. You notice that? So Houston is probably going to be ahead of Chicago because the division's easier. But this year, Houston gets a bad draw. Oh, they got to play in Bears division. Yeah, it's not. Here's the thing. It takes steps, and those steps are always quicker if you're in a bad division. The problem with the Bears is they're now moving in a month into the slog of the best division with a lot of ats. So it's going to get bumpy.
Okay. Yeah, listen. What he's saying is not untrue. I want to get to the schedule if I can find it. There we go. Okay. So, yeah. Listen, nothing he's saying is fundamentally wrong, but it's going to be really interesting because listen, I know there's already becoming this rivalry between Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels, right? I see it all in the comments, see the conversations, and I get it, right? They're both, 1 and 2 and all of that, in terms of draft order, and Jaden Daniels got off to a great hot start, and now Caleb is coming along, and so there's that battle. This game was going to be awesome. I don't know if Jaden Daniels is going to play, and if he does, how healthy he is. So I have no strong opinions about that game. But let's say they win the next 3 games, or let's just say they do 2, right? Let's just say they win 2 out of 3. Then they win 500 of their next games, right? Like, they are a playoff team then, most likely. Most likely that should be enough. Maybe not win the division, but win reach via wild card. So that would be major acceleration. I picked the Bears to be able to make the playoffs. So it'll be interesting. I mean, how they shape up against a team like Green Bay, how they shape up against a team like the Vikings, that's where we learn more about Shane Waldron and Caleb Williams' relationship together. I think more than anything, more than just Caleb individually. Because if you're expecting Caleb to be able to like heroically ball out against some of these great teams, that's asking too much. And I think that is in a way what Colin is trying to kind of emphasize of like, this takes steps to get there, right? You can't just be like, well, hey, you guys told me that Caleb Williams is amazing generational talent, so he should be able to step right in and get some wins here. But to me, this is going to be more like, what is going to be the game plan to scheme and set up Caleb for success against tough teams like Green Bay, Minnesota, Lions, and even the 49ers. The 49ers, by the time week 14, they should be significantly healthier. I mean, who knows, honestly, the way how their season has been going? Who really honestly knows? But it's just going to get harder. Now, I have said this again and again and again about the Chicago Bears and about Caleb Williams, that you do not have to, when we're just trying to evaluate individually, not compare to other quarterbacks, not compare to other rookies, when we're just looking at individual performance of a rookie quarterback, I don't care as much who you play. I don't care how bad the team is. It's less interesting to me, right? It just is, because you're a rookie quarterback. So what you're doing there is still impressive to me, even if it's against a bad team. But then I also said, every time I mentioned that, I said, but in terms of evaluating the team as a whole, looking at who you're playing and the quality of opponent is completely relevant to me. And that's what I've been very consistent about that. And so, yeah, getting a win against the Rams, against the Panthers, and against the Jags, those are three not good teams at all. They're just not. And although I think Caleb's performance individually against those teams was great and deserved to be applauded and praised and to unpack more deeply and say, look how great he's coming along and all of that. But to expect that you're going to be able to just kind of continue to roll or put up some of these numbers or have some of these levels of success with some of these significantly harder teams, that becomes a bridge too far. So in a lot of ways, it's going to be really interesting. Again, it would have been more interesting if we knew Jaden Daniels was playing 100% healthy. Who really knows, honestly? Even if he plays, like I don't know in what capacity. But to me, the first truly interesting game, because it would have been the Commanders, but now it is going to be that Week 11 game. The Cardinals, I know that they can be feisty as well, especially with Kyler Murray. You never know what you're going to get out of that team. But to me, it's really that Packers, that Week 11 game, to kind of figure out, okay, who are the Bears as a whole? Because that Packers defense is pretty legit as well. So who are the Bears as a whole right now, right? Do they get blown out? Do they play pretty competitively, right? Because if they lose a game 24-18, 24-17 or something like that, I'm not going to be like, see, they're outmatched. They're not good enough. I'd be like, no, they're competing. They're showing that they belong. If they get rocked 36-10 or something, right? Like the Bears did to the Panthers, then you would say, okay, this is tough sledding, right? I don't know how they're going to compete with the Vikings, how they're going to compete with the Lions. Like I'm not seeing it. So it's going to be really interesting. It's going to be really telling. And that's why, if you're a Bears fan, you do really want to make sure you get these 3 wins against the Commanders, the Cardinals, and the Patriots, right? Because then that puts you at 7-2. And then out of, from weeks 11 to 18, you probably just need to find a way to win 3 games, right? And then again, who knows where the schedule lies? Maybe one of these teams has their seed locked up, and so they're resting starters. I mean, you just don't know. You really don't. Maybe the Seahawks fall apart from an injury perspective. Maybe the 49ers are just, their season's over. They just can't overcome the injuries. Christian McCaffrey's not even going to play now because why risk it? right? Brock Purdy's getting swallowed up. Nick Wright has put him on pumpkin watch, right? Like, so it's like playoffs are right there. And if you want to talk about accelerating, because, skipping steps or accelerating through these steps, being able to get playoff experience, like in year one with not only this team, but of course, Caleb Williams, that's huge. You don't even have to win a playoff game, but just getting to the playoffs, seeing what it's like, seeing what that preparation is like, what the game speed is like, the physicality, the officiating, the commercial breaks even. Like, if you talk to a lot of ex-NFL players, like, they'll talk about that these things change. It's actually the most disruptive thing, even in the Super Bowl, is that the commercial breaks, and so the stoppage time is extra long. And so if you've never been in the Super Bowl, you're like, what's going on here? It's why experience matters so much for so many different, degrees and different levels. So getting playoff experience, even if you lose, even if you get rolled, right? That's still a learning experience. That's still a moment of, I need to get better. I will work harder. I'll get right. Like, it's all important. So yeah, if the Bears can find themselves in the playoffs and get that experience, then that next year, it's like you're already starting off at a higher level than you would have if you went, 8, 9 wins, missed the playoffs. And it's just like the next year's goal kind of is like, I want to make the playoffs. Where if you make the playoffs this year, next year's goal is like, I want to get to that NFC championship game. I want to, maybe fight for a Super Bowl, right? Like, I want to be a Super Bowl contender, not a playoff contender. So it's going to be really interesting. Even if Jaden Daniels doesn't play, I think the Commanders, I don't know. I go back and forth on this one. I haven't made up my mind about the Commanders defense, especially because now they played a couple bad teams here or there. So it's like, it's hard to really gauge. I thought what they did against the Ravens was actually pretty impressive. I mean, just going up against Lamar and Derrick Henry, I mean, it's like, that's brutal. I mean, look no further than what happened to the Buccaneers, right? The Buccaneers got rolled, absolutely rolled. The Commanders didn't. So even if Jaden Daniels isn't playing, they're still probably going to be a tough team to beat. Because Marcus Mariota, although he's obviously not this great top 10 quarterback, he's been around the league. He's been in the NFL. He's got a unique athletic skill set that Cliff Kingsbury knows how to utilize. So it's like, you can't just be like, oh, Jaden's not playing, this is an easy game. Like, no, that's probably not true either necessarily. So that will probably also be somewhat outside of just really bad quarterback play, right? If Marcus Mariota plays and it's just really bad, right? He's overwhelmed, he's being, swallowed up and all of that, throwing interceptions, which would not mean a lot to me when trying to evaluate the Chicago Bears defense, honestly. But outside of that, if they play a really good game and the Chicago Bears, win, I think that also can kind of continue to go a long way as well. So yeah, just a lot of really interesting games coming up for the Bears. And really, if you really had to boil it down, from week 8 onward, really the only truly like, okay, we absolutely should win this game, no question about it, let's go, is the Patriots, right? Every other game is going to be like, let's see what happens. Can you minimize turnovers? Can you stop the run? Can you get your run, right? It's like, well, let's see. And that's tough. That is a grind. Week 8, 9, 10, you're skip 10, 11, 12, 13. I mean, like, it is going to get real, and it's going to get real fast. So I'm excited to watch it, honestly. Like, I'm excited to watch Caleb continue to grow, watch the Bears continue to grow, see what they look like against adversity in this situation. And I'm sure they're going to surprise a lot of people, quite frankly. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Chicago Bears? Expectations for the rest of this season for the Bears and Caleb? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.